Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Tuesday, the 19th of March, and as you know, most of the afternoons we also spend it in Snaking the Science. This afternoon, we are also going to give you Speak to a Scientist program. As you know, a great program of you guys engaging with different speakers on a platform where we explain theories, we ask questions differently on a particular topic. This afternoon, the topic that we'll be looking at is the effects of climate change on food security. And as you know, my name is Tolani Nameka. It won't be me who's giving you more about the effects of climate change on food security. I'm joined this afternoon by Dr. Nomcebo Rulani Ubisi, who holds an undergraduate degree in biology and environmental sciences, a postgrad diploma in food security, a Master of Agriculture in Research, and a PhD in Food Security from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Great and interesting. Dr. Ubisi has gained valuable experience in conducting and managing various research projects, national and international, applying qualitative and quantitative research methods, covering research topics, but not limited to food security, poverty, inequality, climate change, smallholder agriculture, indigenous knowledge systems, and geospatial analysis. She is a research ethics committee member within the Human Sciences Research Council and strongly believes in research that has a social impact on the lives of communities. She is currently a research specialist at the Africa Institute of South Africa within the Human Sciences Research Council, and her role includes conducting research within the African continent, research proposal writing, problem solving, project management, and implementation, promoting and publications in peer-reviewed journals. Quite interesting. And attending local and international conferences. Over the few years of studying, Dr. Ubisi has grown as an emerging scholar and as an innovator, providing practical research reports that aim to significantly contribute towards the National Development Plan Vision 2030 of South Africa. Most definitely, we are about to hear a lot from Dr. Ubisi on the effects of climate change on food security, from what I've just read to you on what is it that he has achieved and what is it that she's striving for. Definitely, South Africa is doing more. Definitely, Africa is rising, and it needs all of you. That is so interesting. Without wasting any of your time, ladies and gentlemen, let me just have a little chat with Dr. Nomcebo Ubisi. Doctor, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. And how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining Sci-Bono to come and talk on such an interesting topic, a burning one even nowadays on climate change.
Yeah.
But then getting to the food security is what I will definitely, as Polani, will want to hear more out of you. And I'm definitely sure even our audience, where they are, will want to understand climate change versus the food security. What is the link between the two? I'm definitely sure you'll be able to share with us that.
Yes, most definitely. I will try.
Thank you very much. Without wasting any of your time, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to hand all the ropes to Dr. Ubisi to share with us the effects of climate change on food security. Over to you, Doc.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for having me this afternoon. And I hope we're really going to have a conversation around food security and climate change issues, because I believe that this should be a conversation that we should all be engaging in. We know food security is a basic human right, but in fact, millions of people are still struggling to meet this right due to a lot of reasons, including climate change, which is one of the major issues that I would like us to talk about today. So today we're really just gonna go through defining what food security is and defining climate change, as well as the causes, the impacts, the challenges, and the threats to food security. So I will just first start by explaining or defining what climate change is according to the World Food Summit. So food security. So food security is defined when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. So food security is defined by four main dimensions, which the first one is availability. Food availability, like the physical availability of food. So when we talk about food availability, that's where we actually talk about the supply side of food. Which food do we have and how is it available to us? And then we also have what we called access to food. How do we access food? You know, like we have economic access to food. Do we have physical access to food? Sometimes this pillar is actually compromised by the areas we live in, you know. Sometimes we get compromised by the roads and distances of us being able to afford to go access food. And then we also have food utilization, which is also understood as the type of food that you eat. Is it diversified? Is it nutritious? So what kind of food do you have available to you? What kind of food are you accessing? And what kind of food are you utilizing? I'll just make a small example. You know, you cannot, let's say, have rice and cabbage for the whole month and say, no, I have food, at least I have access, I have food available. But when it comes to utilization, that it's called a hidden hunger, because your food is not diversified with different nutrients. So we also have stability. Stability is just basically looking at how sustainable do you have available food. So you can have food today, but if you are worrying about the coming week, then that pillar is also compromised. So remember what I've just, how we just defined food security. These four pillars, they all need to be met. So should one of the four pillars, which is availability, accessibility, utilization, or stability, is compromised, then you are not food secured. This can be narrowed down to a household level, and we can also talk about it at a national level. So for example, in a household, we have to have food available to us. We have to have food accessible to us. We have to have food that is nutritious, and then we should have a stability when we talk of food. So this is just a definition, or just an explanation of understanding what food security is. What are we really talking about when we talk of food security? However, this food security is really compromised a lot by climate change. So I would like us to then also define what climate change is. So I know we have heard about climate change. I'm sure it's not the first time today, and we are all concerned about the effects and the impacts of climate change. But here we will just define it according to the United Nations, which refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. I think we can all attest that the weather changes and patterns, it's really getting out of control. And how is this happening? So, but when we also look into the definition, it says since the 1800s, human activities have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gases. So I know this is not new to us. And burning of fossil fuels, we know that it generates greenhouse gas emissions that acts like a blanket that actually wraps our earth, which is that now causing the main issue, because it traps the sun's heat and then now the rising temperatures. So these are the main issues, and the main greenhouse gases caused by climate change is carbon dioxide and methane. So, but then what really causes this issue? Why should we be concerned? So when we look at causes of climate change, it's actually generating power. I've just mentioned that burning of fossil fuel is a major issue. So we know that when we are generating, especially electricity, we use coal. We're burning coal a lot, especially in South Africa. We're burning oil. We're burning some gases that are releasing carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide. This is really a powerful greenhouse gas again that is actually contributing to the negative effects of climate change. Another one, manufacturing of goods. When we are manufacturing goods, there's a lot of burning of fossil fuels. We produce the energy through the burning, which is the main problem. So we burn to produce like plastics, we burn to produce electronics, our electricity, you know, so this burning of fossil fuel is a major problem. So another major one, which is something that is really close to my heart, the cutting down of forests, is a really serious problem. We know that trees are actually storing carbon dioxide. So when we are now cutting down trees, that carbon dioxide is actually released to the atmosphere. And then it then contributes to this changing climate that we are experiencing today. So approximately with the literature, about 12 million hectares of forest every year is cut down. And you can then imagine what happens to that carbon dioxide that is then now released to be in the atmosphere. And using transportation, it's good. We know we need to move from one place to another, but it's also a problem because we are using fuels to run our transport, our cars, our tractors. Even in agriculture, we use tractors. So if we can also look at ways of minimizing the use of transports, it will actually help. And then this one is actually a tricky one. We are talking of food security, and food production is also a contributor to climate change. So what exactly are we saying? Because we are saying we need to be food secured, we need to produce food, we need to access food, we need to have food available, we need to have food, utilize nutritious food and all. But now when we are saying producing food again is also causing a problem, what do we mean exactly? We mean that when we are actually producing food, we are working the ground, we are working the soil, and the manures, the fertilizers that we add in there, when they evaporate, they also contribute. The tractors that we use, the sprinklers, they use energy, and that energy is usually generated from coal, gas, and oil. So that's where the challenge is. And powering our buildings, you know. Not so long ago, I was out of the country, and someone was saying, "Oh, nice, you're from Johannesburg. You know that city, it's always bright and lighting. Day and night, there are always lights in Joburg," which is nice, but the power that is used to generate those lights, it's another issue, because even in our households, the powering of our buildings in rooms that we're not really occupying at the moment is a problem. So we really need to look into it. And another funny one, consuming too much. What do you mean about by consuming too much? We are talking about how are we then using the food that we are consuming? How are we wasting? How are we throwing food? We consume too much energy, and then we also waste too much food. That's, I think, a topic for another day, food wastage that is actually contributing to climate change. So this is us contributing to climate change. But again, what are the effects then? What why should we bother about this issue? Number one, hotter temperatures. Really, the temperatures are increasing, and with literature, it is said that the last decade, which was 2011 to 2020, was actually the warmest. So we are now experiencing hotter and hotter temperatures, and as we are experiencing hotter temperatures, even wildfires, it's easy for them to start and spread. So it's a major challenge, especially in game reserves and other mountainous areas. And then we are also experiencing more severe storms. The storms that we are experiencing are really affecting people's livelihoods. About a week ago in Mozambique, they've just experienced this very disturbing storm where livelihoods were lost, you know, hotels, people's houses. This was really a negative impact on the livelihood of people. And once a person loses their livelihood, that means they are losing their income. That means their food security status is compromised. So this is really a negative impact. So such storms, they often destroy and even leading to deaths at some areas. And what I've just realized is now, you know, these days we are actually receiving more rains at this side, and the rains usually comes with hail, which is now something I've actually observed to say, there's something happening. Really, there is a change in this rainfall patterns. So these are the negative effects. And again, increased droughts. This one is a major one, especially when we are looking at the agricultural sides of things, which is the main driver of food security. Remember, agriculture produces food. The food that we eat, the food that we buy, it's through agricultural production. So if that sector is compromised, then we will really feel the effects. So increased droughts, it's becoming a major issue. I work very closely with smallholder farmers, and it is very rare for you to visit any farm at any given time and not hear anything about not receiving enough rains, not really being able to keep up with their seasonal planting, because they don't even know anymore when they should expect the rains to come. So increased droughts, it's really affecting especially our agricultural sector. The warming and rising of ocean. Aaron, we might know that actually ocean also stores carbon dioxide, but too much of that carbon dioxide, if it's released in the atmosphere, it's also now affecting the life inside the oceans, the coral reefs and stuff. So now we are also experiencing melting ice. We know there are other parts of the world where they really have life in like Iceland. So if the ice is melting, it's really affecting the species in those areas as well. And as I've just mentioned, the loss of species due to the changing environment. Some species are now disappearing because it's getting hotter. In some areas, it's getting cooler. So there's no balance anymore. Again, not having enough food. Not having enough food is, I cannot overemphasize that issue, which is the agricultural side of things. And then more health risks. More health risks, we are really talking about the new emerging diseases that are coming with climate change. The more it gets warmer, some new diseases are emerging. The more it gets cooler, some new diseases are emerging that are actually even difficult to control. So now we are faced with the challenges that we are experiencing, new emerging pests and diseases. So how do we control it? And poverty and displacement, which is an issue of the effects of climate change, with the storms, with the hails, with the cyclones that are happening. people are now losing their livelihoods, people are now facing poverty. And our major one, the food security. If all these pillars of food security are affected by climate change, then the whole of the food security status is compromised. So I would just like us to just have a brief look at this diagram, which is something really just overemphasizing some of the pointers that I've just mentioned. That climate change really is causing unexpected weather changes and weather extreme conditions. So now it's really difficult to plan as a farmer, as a producer, as someone who's really trying to sustain the livelihood and food security status. And again, the biological changes of populations, modification of population shapes, the new geographical distribution of pests and diseases. Farmers can attest on this one. Some pests and diseases that were actually experienced in maybe the northern part of the country are now being experienced on the southern part of the country, which is something new, something that is emerging. And those pests and diseases are actually difficult to control because you can't really control it with the changing environment that you cannot really make predictions of. So these threats to food security, it's really affecting them, the four pillars that I've just mentioned, and I will keep on reminding us about them, which are food access, food availability, food utilization, and stability. So now this climate change, it also affects the crop production, as I've mentioned, through droughts and floods. You know, it's so heartbreaking that as a farmer, you just had just planted your harvest and it's looking good. Next thing, there are no rains coming, especially for those who are depending on rain-fed agriculture. And just to share a bit, those smallholder farmers are the main contributors to food production. So if they are compromised, the whole nation is actually compromised. We can also attest with some of the experiences that we have experienced looking at the price hikes on some commodities. So the impact on livestock as well. The heat waves, you will see or you might know that livestock are usually out there on open fields. So if it gets too hot, they tend to die. This is due to what? Climate change as well. And then reduced access to food, the changes in precipitation patterns. I've just highlighted that one as well. And affects food quality. We are now experiencing or receiving what is called acid rains, which is also affecting our soils. And if the soil is affected, the produce will be affected as well. And then the spikes in food prices. If we are not producing enough, food is becoming scarce and the prices become very high. So now it's really affecting the poor to be poorer, because if they cannot afford food, then their food security status is really compromised. So these are just some of the challenges of food security. To say, you know, in South Africa alone, there's about 2.1 million people who are exposed to hunger. This is a very high percentage, and this really needs to be dealt with. So if people are experiencing hunger like this, you can imagine that things are not going well. And this is just a South African status. So globally, it's even worse. So we're having global price shocks. We can tell now the prices of oil, the prices of eggs. Because if we're not producing more, if we are experiencing these shortages, obviously things will get very expensive. And unemployment. People are unemployment. There's a very high rate of unemployment, not in South Africa alone. This is a food security issue. If you are unemployed, there's no income, then how can you access food? Food can be available in supermarkets, but if you don't have money to buy that food, then that one pillar is compromised, then the whole food security status is compromised. And it actually leads you to poverty. And we also remember our famous one, COVID-19, which really struck the food security status of a lot of people and the nation and globally as a whole. So these are just some issues that are just food security challenges that we really need to think about when we are talking about food security. Why should we be concerned? Why should we bother ourselves in really digging in to understand what is food security, how is it affected, what can be done? So the climate shocks, increasing food scarcity, it's another major issue. So I have just tried to group some pointers to say what can be the solution, what can be done. I know since primary school we have had reduce, reuse, repair, and recycle. So I will also sing that gospel to say, let's try to reduce the impacts, the things, the burning of fossil fuels. Let us try to reuse. Let us try to repair instead of just throwing things and really that are now contributing to the greenhouse gases. Let us make our voices to be heard in platforms like this. Let's keep on talking about these issues. Let's keep on discussing. Let's keep on having a conversation and learning more into what these issues are about. How are we really affected as a community, as an individual, as a nation? Let us also protect the forests. I've mentioned that cutting down of forest is a serious issue, where about 12 million hectares per year it's actually cut down, and that forest is actually storing our carbon dioxide. So if we're thinking of cutting down a tree, just think that I'm releasing carbon dioxide to the atmosphere and I'm actually now contributing to climate change, of which is something we should really fight. And let's try to save energies at home. Yes, we use energy, we should use energy, but there are ways where we can save and try to minimize the usage, which will really assist in bringing down the effects of climate change. And let's walk, it's actually healthy. Cycle and try to use public transport as well, just to try and reduce the traffic jams, the emissions of cars, thousands of cars that are always in our roads. You know, some of these issues you might think that, is it really going to make a difference? But if 1, 2, 3, 5 of us, 10 of us start really working on it, you will see there will be a difference. And let us also protect and our green spaces, our wetlands. Those are also actually some spaces that are actually helping us. And we are not really sometimes taking into consideration or being cautious about it, but it really makes a difference. And again, let us build climate resilience, especially for the agricultural sector. Let us also motivate or encourage our farmers to diversify their crops. So just in case you lose one, other crops can withstand and other crops can adapt to the changing environment. Let us also improve our irrigation systems, which are also, especially in those big farms, they use a lot of energy. Those sprinklers that are out there, they use a lot of energy. And again, let us promote sustainability in our farming systems and keep fossil fuels on the ground. Let's make sure that whatever step you want to do, the cutting of a tree, burning of any plastics or burning of any waste, just think about it to say, if I'm doing it and 10 other people are doing it, then we are really contributing to this climate change that we don't want, and that is now really leading to affecting food security, which is people's livelihood. So let us stop climate change. Let us save our world. Let us keep up the good work. Don't think that if you are the only one doing the right thing, then you are not really making a difference. believe you me, you are making a huge difference, and you should keep on the good work until everyone else really understands the great contribution that we are doing. Thank you so much, and yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Wow, that was quite insightful, I must say, Dr. Nomcebo. Let us reduce, let us reuse, again, let us repair.
Yes.
Those were your words.
And recycle.
Recycling.
Yes.
Oh, the fourth one is the recycle.
Yes, let's not just throw things away.
Let's not just throw things
them.
away.
Yes.
And you also spoke about the 4 pillars of food security.
Yes.
And I didn't capture what are those 4 pillars of the food security.
Oh, okay. The 4 pillars of food security is access,
yeah,
utilization, availability, and sustainability.
Wow.
So when we talk about access, we are talking about having, simple terms, money to buy, to access food.
Yeah.
When we talk about availability, do we have that food in the markets? So we can have money, but the food products that we're looking for are not in the markets. Then it's a problem. That pillar is compromised. Yeah. So food access, just in simple terms, it's me being able to afford it or to buy it. Food availability is have the produce available, both at a national, at a household level. And when we talk of utilization, the food that we eat, the food that we utilize, is it nutritious? Are our plates diversified? You know, and when we talk of stability, over the period, are you going to have enough? So those are the main pillars. And should one of those pillars be compromised, then we just say you are food insecure. So it's not, at least I can achieve one and the other ones can, no. We have to achieve all 4 pillars. It can be at a household level, it can be at the national, because even at the national level, if, for example, we say we don't produce enough maize, and now we go to supermarkets and we don't have maize or mealie meals in the supermarkets, the availability pillar is compromised. Sure. I might have the money, but then I'm looking for maize and it's not available. So that's the availability pillar.
So I was sent an article by the Royal Society. I'm sure you know it. They now work with the UN, the American Advancement of Sciences. Now that article, when I open it, it speaks of science diplomacy. And now I heard you saying some of the challenges that we are having here, they are also there even in Africa. Now, global problems, as they studied, requires a global solution. Now they speak of science in diplomacy, where we need now to work on policies and so on. When it comes to these challenges, climate change or droughts and so on. Then they speak again of diplomacy for science. Now that's where now we need to be educating each one, facilitating these projects and so on. But of key importance for them was now science for diplomacy, which is now cooperation in agreement. You mentioned when you started even to our audiences that were abroad earlier in Lusaka and so on. Understand that to work on certain projects and things like that let us join hands, things like that. Now, I've received some 5 questions that definitely can talk to those things, because we travel as doctors, as professors, as researchers, as academics, you know, seeking solutions to problems like these. Now the question, the first one, it says, how does climate change affect food security in South Africa?
In South Africa?
Yes.
I think after this presentation, we all can respond to that one now.
Sure.
Like I have just mentioned, you know, in South Africa, we are also experiencing weather changes. you know. In South Africa, we are also experiencing storms. We are also experiencing droughts. So it's not just an issue for other countries. Even when we are bringing it back home, we are also going through those effects. So, for example, I did a project in Limpopo last year, and the farmers there were telling me that they haven't planted that season because there's been droughts. They don't know when the rains will come. And these people, farming is their livelihood. That's where their food security is coming from. That's where they plant, they eat and sell the surplus. So that's where they actually generate their livelihood. So if that pillar of their farming is compromised, their food security is compromised. So those are the effects of climate change as well. Because they would say, you know, before, we know that beginning of this season, we will be expecting rains. Beginning of this season, we'll be harvesting. But now they can't even plan. They just farm as the rain comes. So these are the evidence of climate change.
And it doesn't come.
And it doesn't come.
It doesn't rain.
It doesn't rain. And when it rains, sometimes it just damages. It just damages, because even floods, we normally sometimes just maybe observe or concentrate on droughts, but floods will just wipe up the whole farm. So these are the evidence in South Africa that are happening. So climate change is real.
Need to take care of our environment.
Yes.
So looking at the next one, can we be redeemed from the disaster, or at least reverse or slow down the effects of climate change?
Definitely.
How so?
If I can have the positive attitude on doing the right things, like I think it was also part of the solutions there, to say, I shouldn't think that if I'm just the only one doing it, why should I bother? But if we keep on preaching, we keep on having such conversations, we keep on talking about these issues, then people will be educated and people will start doing the right things. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel that we can reach, not that we can maybe just eliminate it overnight, but the more we're doing the right things, the more we reduce on the burning of fossil fuels, the more we start using renewable energies, the more we start thinking about just cutting down trees. Just because, you know, sometimes there's no reason really. I just don't like this tree, you know. So if we can change the mentality, and 2, 3, 5,000, 10,000 people are starting to actually do that, then we're definitely gonna achieve. Yes.
The process they call, is it deforestation?
Deforestation.
Yeah, so if you can move away from that.
Yes.
No, that one I'm educated on. Right, from your scientific point of view, can you briefly explain how climate change happens from clouds to the atmosphere and eventually to the land?
Okay. I will try to explain it in simple terms.
Because we are joined by the learners there, and I know they know the, what is it, the water sector.
I wish they were actually here to help me right now. I wish you were actually here to help me, because I know they know more than I do, you know? Yes. So what happens when we talk of climate change? We are talking of a change in weather over a period of time. Okay. It's not a weather change, like a 2 days weather. Then I'm saying this is climate change. It should be over a period of time. Okay. So that's the change in weather patterns. It can change to be hotter. It can change to be cooler. Any change. So that's the change. That's the change of climate. That's climate change. But how it happens is when we are now burning, like for example, coal. We know, especially in South Africa, coal, our electricity is mainly generated from coal. Yes. So the more we keep on burning coal, there are gases like carbon dioxide that are now emitted to the atmosphere. Those gases, and it's carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide, when they are emitted, they are now becoming what we call greenhouse gases,
Okay.
where they are now becoming like, it's more like they are a blanket. They are now covering our planet. And when the planet is covered, the heat, it's more like it's trapped inside.
I see.
So when the heat is trapped inside this balloon, there's now a competition with the rays that keep on coming down, and to increase the temperatures, to actually now melting the ice in those areas where there's actually ice land. So that's that. I don't know if I'm trying to making it as simple as possible.
You are coming along. You are coming along. Though. Very nice. You are coming along with it. Very nice.
That is actually, in summary, that is climate change. So what we are experiencing, it's actually now the effects or the evidence that there's this thing that is happening in the atmosphere. Yes.
Because suddenly you are in summer, but there's a point whereby you need to wear a jacket for a week. You ask yourself what's happening.
Yes, and you know, I love to work with old people as well, because you know those ones, they are really
There's wisdom
So
there.
they will normally tell me that, you know, during our times, we used to know that if clouds during the season are changing colors or are forming like this, that means it's gonna rain for at least a week. Or if the birds are chirping like this, or if the frogs are now croaking like this means this. But now, because of climate change, some of those species are actually adapting to this change. So it doesn't always mean anymore that when they hear a frog croaking like this, then it's gonna, sometimes it won't. And those people were relying on that indigenous thing, and those, they just lived with nature to actually understand what's happening. So, you know, climate change, it's a very broad theme. So I know we just tried to broaden it down, but it really affects even the indigenous knowledge systems of people, how people used to interact with the environment. So now things are a bit shifted.
I was going to come to that to say, it implies now the indigenous knowledge also is being affected.
Yes.
Right. How has human beings contributed to the climate change? How have they been contributing to the climate change as human beings? You know, whether positively, negatively, and if it's positively, how so? If it's negatively, how so?
The positive part, let me start there. I know there are some programs of now recycling, reusing, you know, they are collecting some containers. That's a positive one. And we should actually appreciate that. We shouldn't always look for the negative ones. So, so yes, that's a positive one. But the negative one, it's actually what we are doing currently.
What are we doing? Because we might not be aware. Not all of us are in the field of of this climate change, food securities, all these things. You know, you might think, no, man, throwing this, cutting a tree, as you said it, you know, because it irritates me. The roots are running under my house, things like that. Then I'm doing something good for me, only to find out I'm affecting.
Yes. No, that's actually true. That's actually correct. You have just mentioned one. We are cutting down trees. Like this, it was actually shocking for me when I saw it that 12 million hectares a year. We are cutting down trees. That's really shocking. And the same trees that are actually helping us to store the carbon dioxide that is contributing to the greenhouse gases, you know. So we are cutting down trees. We are using a lot of, we are burning a lot of fossil fuels through generating power, our cars, manufacturing. You know, we are contributing in that sense that when we are at home, for example, it's just a household and we are all sitting in a sitting room, but all the other rooms have their lights on. all the other bedrooms, maybe they have even have their air conditioned on or the heaters on. You know, those little contributors are now, if I'm doing it, you're doing it, he's doing it, it's becoming more and more and more.
Yeah.
And that is really causing the effects.
And we cannot be in control as we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Last one. Going forward, hopefully after the climate change condition becomes favorable, how can one improve the food security? How can we improve that now there is food security and so on? Must we look at the issue of saying, because we have so many people who are unemployed, can we employ people? Can we do this? Can we just look at new land for our agriculture? How can we improve when it comes to this food security?
I think what we can do to improve the food security, we can start on the agricultural side of things or sector, which is the greatest contributor to food security. Agriculture is actually the key, the backbone of food security. So if we start there to say, let's educate our farmers on how can we have conservation, agriculture,
Okay.
which is using a natural way of creating, manure instead of using those chemicals and fertilizers on our soils. Instead of maybe saying, let's just use tractors to plow our land. If it's not a very big land, some areas they still also use the assistance of livestock.
Is it?
Yes, which is actually less consuming to the energies, know.
Okay.
So we can start there really. I'm an advocate for own food production, because if I'm producing my own food, I know usually it's organic food, it's nutritious food, it's healthy food.
Yeah.
And again, you don't need a big land to start farming.
Yeah.
At the back of your home, you can have your small garden, you can plant your vegetables. And believe me, they look so small, but they can go a long way, especially if you diversify your crops as well. So we can start there. And again, when we do that, we know that especially in rural areas, most people are farming. In that farming, they sell, they eat. So they are trying to achieve all the pillars of food security in just one sector. So I would just say, let's, instead of just sitting and say, anyway, I'm not employed, how can I achieve food security? Anyway, I'm just waiting maybe for the assistance from the government. You can start doing something. You can start, I'll just say agriculture is the way to try and achieve the food security status of people, especially at a household level.
That's for me now. A question on their behalf. You speak of the commercial farming, if I understand it.
Yes.
That you can even grow this to a certain level, things like that, as opposed to subsistence farming than even only your family, which is also all right. But then the method of farming is what I've heard you even emphasizing on. Do you think technology can assist us in achieving our goal when it comes to climate change and food security?
Yes. Technology can assist in achieving, even in agriculture. Because when we talk of technology, having what do they call this, weather stations, sensors, that's technology. And if we have that available to us, that information, that awareness of what's coming up this week, it's a use of technology,
For sure.
like mobile apps. We can just have a agricultural mobile app where information on even how to plant certain crops can be shared, how to take care. If you are maybe experiencing challenges on pests and crops, how can you deal with that, if there's someone who's feeding into the app on those information, that's technology. And you don't need someone, or you don't need me to come to your farm to say, what's the problem? How can I assist? Just on an app, while you are at the comfort of your home, you can ask questions.
Wow.
You can actually receive information, of which is actually something I'm working on,
Yeah.
developing a mobile app for smallholder farmers.
Yeah.
Because another challenge, they would say, we are too many. We only have one extension officer. So, but we do have phones. You know, some, yes, they can't really operate because they are old,
They are
but
old.
they had grandkids. They have daughters and sons that
Who
are
can show
techno
them.
smart, yes.
Yeah.
So, if we can share such information on such platforms, can really make a difference on the agricultural sector. Yes.
Dr. Nomcebo, I must say, you nailed it, and you know this topic, although you are saying it's quite broad, but
It is.
but that broadness, you took it, you narrowed it to the understanding of everybody who has joined us, you know, into our studio here at Sci-Bono. And I think that should not be the end when it comes to this. I know you are a very busy woman out there who's still doing more, you know, for our country and so on. Please always come and share to us any other findings into these topics that we might be having here at Sci-Bono. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Nomcebo Ubisi from Human Sciences Research Council coming to share with us the effects of climate change on food security. Hopefully you have gained a lot of insight from all the pillars that she has mentioned. You have also listened to her when she spoke about the reduce, reuse, repair, and recycle, to say keep that in your mind. Do not cut trees, because those trees, they assist us in at least containing the carbon dioxide, so that tomorrow our ecosystem does not get harmed. Thank you very much, Dr. Nomcebo Ubisi. Thank you very much to all our
Absolute
audiences.
pleasure.
For more questions and so on, please, you can always tune on to www.scibono.co.za. From me, Kolani Nameka, I'm saying until next time, thank you very much. Cheers.